Hi, welcome back to. I need a new title for this. We're not calling it that anymore. Menopause is a story. How's that? I'll keep working on it. So let me jump into that first of all. When I say it's a story, it's a conglomeration of things happening as a result of a story, and we get to rewrite it, or we can own it. And by continuing to use the title that I have been using, it's more of an owning it. And I'm not doing that anymore. I will jump in to this video on my most recent manifestation and um, how judgment plays a part in your health. And what you can do about it. So, yesterday I read a post by a guy named James Brady on Facebook. I'll I'll work on finding the post because in it he shared a cute little picture of two Kermit the Frogs talking to one another. One represented his ego, the other represented his higher self. And he said, as he's evolved, he's recognized that oftentimes um, his ego doesn't want to say things because it might hurt somebody's feelings. His higher self, though, will then jump in and say, well, maybe that was meant to be part of their experience so that they can learn or heal. And I'm talking about, speaking your truth, not going out of your way to be mean, if you will. Um, and it resonated strongly. I have, for the last several months, recognized that through a preponderance of evidence and personal experience, when we claim a situation and spend any kind of energy on it, we make it ours. We build a whole thing around it, and our body's like, okay, that's the plan. Got it. Um, when we choose to disregard or give no more energy to that idea of sickness and disease, whether that be menopause or something bigger or smaller, then it passes because it has to, because we're God. I'll give you a personal example that came to mind yesterday. I was remembering that when I was going through my cancer journey, I had a moment where, well, first of all, I started visualizing after the surgery that the cancer would be gone. And I kept revisiting that idea, that, that vision. And mind you, this was long before I understood any of this stuff. It was an intuitive moment. After the surgery was completed, the doctor didn't state things in the way that I had hoped. It did go well, but didn't go perfectly well. And um, yet, what I took from that was my interpretation was what you're asking me to do is prevention. They wanted me to do chemo. And I did do that. But all the while, when people would say to me, Well, because you have cancer, I would adamantly say, no, I had cancer. I had, past tense. What I'm doing now is preventing myself from getting it again. When the time came after 6 months for me to be on my last treatment, and then I got to ring the bell for the chemo treatments being over, I recalled that feeling of the struggle is over, I'm finished. And it was a glorious feeling. I filmed it. I was just elated, like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy right now. And I brought that feeling back into my body yesterday. And I was thinking, is it really that simple to just decide I'm done with it? I'm not going to own that story anymore. And the answer came to me clearly, yes. Yes, it is. That doesn't mean deny the facts as far as what is your intuition telling you to change. But what I'm saying to you is don't build an identity around it. And I say this from a place of compassion because I've done it. And I'm watching women, myself included in the past, build a story around menopause. And it's counterproductive unless you enjoy suffering. So as I brought this feeling into my body and became aware, I am well. I am well. I am well. I am well now. Now is the time. I am well. It doesn't matter what my body is saying. That's an old story. It's in the past. It doesn't identify me. I am God. I am well. I had a moment shortly after that where I was thinking about a friend and how are they going to respond, worrying about other people's thoughts on this topic. And then I thought, no, that's not my concern. I didn't do that when I had cancer. I didn't go around asking for people's permission and to say that I was, that I was done with it. I didn't. It wouldn't even have occurred to me. So then I noticed I got an angel number right at that moment when that thought came through. And I looked it up, and there was only one interpretation. And a lot of times when you Google angel numbers, you'll get like 100 different choices. There was one choice, and it was 3 words. And it said, "You are well." And right then I knew that's it. That's it. I'm owning it. I'm well. I'm well. End of story. Point point made. End of story. I will no longer support any thoughts that are other than that. I've raised my consciousness to a point of understanding that as long as I continue to embody the feeling of I am well, regardless of what little fits my body might throw, like a child in a store wanting candy, I'm not going to give it that attention. I'm not going to give in. And the irony is that there's so many people within the spiritual world who do this with finances, where they get like, no, I'm only going to choose abundant thoughts when it comes to money or potential opportunities, whatever the case may be. The same is true for your health. The same. It's the same type of manifestation. Same. So judgment comes in because we like to think we're not worthy of that, or because we're holding on to the past. We're not forgiving, letting go of the past. We're attached to that identity of I am sick or there's something wrong with me. I was sitting in service this morning, And I attend a place called Unity Spiritual Center. The conversation was focused on judgment versus judgment. And one of the things that I said was one of my favorite quotes is on this topic is by Eleanor Roosevelt. The quote is, "No one can make you feel inferior without your permission." In other words, we are creating our own feelings. We are responsible for our own feelings. What also occurred to me as I was describing to someone that I started using these super patches, which help align your frequency to certain, help align your body's frequencies that are matched with certain organs, ideal frequencies. And I'm explaining this patch to her, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm familiar." And I said, "It's really just a permission slip." And she said, "Well, that's one perspective." True. And then I dug a little deeper into that thought and said to myself, why is it that we recognize, or those of us that do recognize, that other people don't create our feelings for us? They might say or do something we don't appreciate, but they don't create the feeling. We do that. And we can call that, like Eleanor Roosevelt did, giving permission. We gave them permission to cause a certain feeling in us. But when we're speaking of wellness, we don't apply the same principle. In other words, these modalities that are out there are permission slip. And it's okay. I'm not ragging on permission slips. Sometimes that's what helps us get over the hump. But it's important to notice and recognize that's exactly what it is a permission slip. Because otherwise you're giving away your power. And then you never step over that threshold of I am well within your own power. Like, I am well because I'm taking this pill, or I am well because I'm eating a certain diet, or I am well because whatever. What if those things stop meeting that need? What if they no longer work? Which, in my experience, has been the case, and what led me to deeper self-discovery was recognizing there's more to this than just following a certain diet and doing a certain exercise and taking all the supplements and whatever. When we speak, we are literally creating into the universe. We're manifesting. And when we're doing it with confidence, whatever those words are, whatever we have confidence in, if we have confidence in our sickness, we'll keep making more of it. And here's the thing. When you get, say, like a cold or a flu or something, you may tell yourself a story. I think probably most of us have on some level. Oh, you start getting the sniffles and you turn it into this whole long, I'm going to have to take off work and blah, blah, blah. At some point, though, in your mind, you're saying to yourself, well, this will pass soon because, it's just a cold or whatever. You recognize, you acknowledge, on a deep level that the possibility exists for something, for healing to occur at some certain point. You know that will take place. So why not just start knowing it and owning it from the get-go instead of playing into more of the drama? And again, back to the permission slip. If that gets you over the hump, great. But it's a Band-Aid. I will continue to state, regardless of what my body throws at me, I am well. And I mean to say that in a way of profound acceptance of the struggle is over. Just like when I rang that chemo bell, I'm done. It's finished. Like Jesus said, it's finished. I don't have to keep stepping into the same story. One of the people that helped me elevate in this regard is a teacher by the name of Brian Ridgway. And he talks about having watched people who have been told they had cancer literally breathe out that story. On the opposite end, I've heard stories of doctors telling a patient that their diagnosis was likely to, say cancer was the one that came to mind. A doctor told somebody, oh my goodness, you've got this type of cancer. It's surely going to come back and kill you because that's how this cancer operates. And this person believed them on such a deep level that when they started having some issues again, before they could even get the tests completed, he convinced himself that he was going to die. And when they did, and he did very shortly after that, and when he passed, they did an autopsy on him and discovered he had almost no cancer in his body. So what killed him was his thought, his belief, his story. We have the power to create compassionate community within our body or chaos and war. And the choice is entirely ours. I choose peace. I choose wellness.